Hey guys, Becky here, FiveTwoBaker. Welcome back to my channel. So fall is in full swing and I thought it would be nice for a change to do some foliage as opposed to flowers. This is the simple little foliage that we'll be working on this week. It's super pretty, crispy looking, nice and colorful, and not at all difficult to do. There's very few things that you can do to get this wrong, so just take it easy when you're going through it and know that it'll work out in the end. But let's get right to it. So I start off with a light green paste, and I'm using light green because I want all my pretty fall colors to show through when I do the color dusting. And then I go ahead and stamp out, using my veiner, the max size that I can make my leaf, because I'm going to be cutting these out sort of freehand using an X-Acto knife, and I want to make sure I don't cut it bigger than my veiner. The other thing is this veiner is very deep with its veins, so I make sure that my flower paste is a little thicker than I would normally make it so that I don't get too many cuts in my leaves and have it fall apart. I do like this veiner though because it does give me some of the cuts because it's such a deep vein, and so it just adds to the fall effect. I go ahead and cut out each of my leaves a little bit different for each one, some thicker, some thinner, all of that, and then I put it onto my foam board. On the foam board, while normally I roll out the entire thing, for this I'm just doing the edges. I want it to stay a little thick. Then I go ahead and I dust my veiner with some cornstarch to keep it from sticking to the flower paste, and I press it to get a nice little vein. I will get some cracks and some breaks in this, but again, that's good. It's fall foliage, so I want some of that. I'm using a 28 gauge wire, and I just dip it into some edible glue and then rub it right down the middle and kind of taco it a bit. Now, once you have all of these set out to dry, wherever it is that you're drying them, all you want is that each of them dry a little bit differently, so make sure to twist them around and have them hanging off the edges, all that. So the colors that I'm going to use for my leaves are green, orange, and brown, and I'm using those because that's just what I happen to have. The green that I'm using is a green that I made using a light green and a dark forest green, because the light is too light, the dark is too dark, so I just mix them up to get the color that I want. I go ahead and color all the parts of my leaf that I want to be green, and I leave blank with no color dust the parts that I want to have that fall color. So for this one, I'm coloring 3/4 of it a green, and then 1/4 of it I'm going to color orange. But I do all of my green parts first, just so that I don't mix up the colors too much, because I'm using the same brush because I'm going to do a lot of blending, so it really doesn't need different brushes for this. I'm being super generous with the green also because it's not super dark, so if I really want it to stand out and stay, I need to use a lot more here. Now once I'm done with all my greens, I go ahead and move on to my orange, but this orange is super bright. It's like a tangerine orange, so I mute it down with some of the green that I have to get a more autumn looking orange. And once I'm happy with that, I go ahead and I start coloring the empty parts that I left for the fall colors on each of my leaves. Now this orange here was still really bright, a lot brighter than I wanted it, but that's no biggie. I just blend it into the green and I add more green on top of it to give it a bit more of a muted color, to make it a little more of a golden looking orange than a bright tangerine orange. And then I go ahead and grab the brown that I have on the side. I add some of that on top, mostly on the edges, but anything that's left over on my brush, I just brush over it to blend all the colors in so that it's not color blocked and you just have one orange section, one green section, one brown section. You want it all to blend in really nicely. And don't forget, what you do on the front, you do on the back also. I haven't fact checked that with real leaves, but that's what I imagine the real leaves would do. So that's what I do too. Now anywhere that I have the colored edges, I try to make sure that I put extra brown, just because I imagine those are the edges that are aging faster, so they would have a little more brown. And also any of the edges that are ripped or torn, I imagine those are the more aged edges, so I go ahead and add more brown to those as well, and then just blend it in. I'll also add a little more brown to the center of the leaves and sometimes the back spine of it, I guess it would be called, just to add more shadows and have it stand out a bit more. And this is what my 5 leaves look like. Each of them are a little bit different and they're all shaped differently. I go ahead and grab a 22 gauge wire and some brown floral tape because this is a branch. And I attach my first leaf to it and I just go down adding in pairs of 2, but you could just do one at a time or multiple branches, leave bigger spaces, whatever it is that you like. You can go ahead and do. Just make sure that you don't get a stiff branch. So once you're all done adding your leaves and setting up your branch, just give it a little bit more movement and twist the leaves, turn the branch a little bit, just so that it looks a little more relaxed than with movement. And that's your final product. And that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you make lots of pretty foliage. If you have any questions or suggestions, drop them down in the comments below. I will get back to you. I'd love to know what you're thinking. And if you liked this video or found it helpful, please do give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. But I will see you next time for more sugary things.